say when it comes to buying and selling at the same time, it truly comes down to the partnership that you have with the person you're moving with and the person that you're working with. Maintaining open communication about timelines and trusting the process is important. Staying consistent, staying persistent, and focused on the big picture. Overall, I think at the end of the day, it was a net positive. It was what we had to do in order to ultimately end up in the house that we wanted. And it was totally worth it.
Yeah, I totally agree. You know,
Yeah.
it's a lot of it is just, you know, a necessity, you know, to be competitive, especially as younger people, you know, you have to have the funding available. You know, it's very difficult in this area to sell on the contingency, as you know. So to that end, it's patience. You know, I think the hardest part for us was not necessarily the sale. That was actually pretty easy. We had a few swings and misses as well, as it always, you know, happens in this area. So for us, I think the key was just having you know, that window of time. If it was a short window, it would be very difficult, I think, to sort of make the timeline work. And yeah, you were very helpful with that, sort of keeping us confident, you know, in the process.
Yeah, with those texts like, Alan, what are we doing? We're down another 2 weeks. And every time you came back saying, like, truly, I'm not worried about it. We have so much time. Everything will be fine. It was just like exactly what we needed to fight through the uncertainty and the fear of the unknown. But, you know, when you're putting these offers, they're not getting accepted, having that like communication with your partner, what are our non-negotiables? Where are we willing to be flexible, get out, go see houses, feel out the market, track how things are being negotiated, what's closing, what's not. But you got to commit. You got to commit 100%.
Yeah.
I do think that was the difference for us, especially for our second place, was, you know, knowing exactly what we wanted. Yeah. And, you know, throughout the process, I think we had moments of, you know, do we need to be a little more flexible? At the end of the day, we landed, you know, exactly what we were looking for. But I think that really helps narrow down, you know, the search and sort of focuses in on ultimately looking around at the market. You know, what do we think we're going to need to do to be competitive for specifically what you want? At the end of the day, for us, that was making sure we got our sale done, you know, and closed ahead of time, just so we know, you know, exactly what funding we have available and so forth. So, you know, again, it's I think there's a bit of anxiety involved, you know, when you don't have, you know, your next place lined up. But I think it's just the way to be the most competitive, you know, right now. And, you know, for us, it worked out very well. We just had, as I said, to be patient.
So welcome to episode 2 with you guys. This is your second time at the closing table with me. And I actually rewatched episode 1. And it was like so cool, but that was such an outlier deal. And then like when you guys called me back again, it was like, hey, we want to sell this place and buy another place. And we went through all those steps. I was like, man, I hit such a home run the first time. There's so much pressure this time around. And then how complex this was, I was like, all right, we need to like be perfect. So that was definitely added pressure on my end. But when we go and sell and buy at the same time, there's a lot of complexities, right? And you want to ideally not lose on both sides. So on the buy side, having a home sale contingency is like almost a guaranteed loss. So we have to go and focus on the sell side and get your house under contract, get a buyer to come in and offer us a UNO, a use and occupancy, or a suitable housing clause. How did you guys feel when I unloaded that on you guys? Because did that all make sense? And you typically have like some natural fears, I get it. What was that from you guys?
I mean, I think talking to you helped a lot. I think for me, the big question as we started was like, what really are our options here? You know, for me, it seemed like a very risky venture to sell and just sort of roll the dice and hope that we, again, find exactly what we're looking for. And to your point, we did kind of, you know, hit a home run the first time, got very lucky, I guess, to some extent with that purchase. But I was confident that we were going to be able to find something that would work. It was more about, as you said, the sequence of events, you know, and, you know, I think growing up, learning from my parents, you know, this was never done. You know, people would sell with the contingency every time, right?
Yeah.
And so really for us, it was just helpful for you to walk us through it. You know, after that conversation, I think I came to you and I said, okay, we have options. I don't know exactly what this is going to look like yet. and also too, I think a big part of it for us was, what's our sale going to look like? You know, how much are we going to be able to go above asking, for example, and help us sort of put some money towards the next place. So again, I think a lot of the concerns we had were sort of calmed down after, you know, chatting with you and making sure we were all on the same page.
And that's normal, right? when we go and say we're gonna sell your house first, and you're like in your head, you're like, oh, we're gonna be homeless. Yes, very scary. But I think what we need to do is on the buy side, get you to the point where we are pretty certain that it's possible. And do you guys feel like you're in that space of like, okay, it's out there?
Yeah, I mean, I think there was an ebb and flow. As we talked about earlier today, you know, there were some offers we made where we missed out, and I frankly couldn't believe, you know, how much we were short on. But that's the Boston market. You know, it is what it is. And, you know, I think as time went on, I was getting, on one hand, more and more confident in what we wanted, you know, but on the other hand, more and more concerned that, you know, we might have to adjust our expectations a little bit, you know.
How did you feel?
Oh, I was in a full panic. Are you kidding? And when you like are in that marriage partnership, like I think it's a pretty golden rule. One person gets to freak out at a time, and so it was so hard just being like, okay, it's Austin's turn to freak out right now. Keep it together, like trying to be that the yin to the yang, but truly like having parameters from you, having a plan A. This is what we're gonna go for. Plan B. I have a cabin you can move into, worst case scenario. Like, I'll block it now, it'll be yours. Plan C, you know, we'll figure it out when we get there. But yeah, it is very anxiety inducing. But I think one thing that you always were very communicative about and came in heavy with was as the seller, you have the upper hand to really negotiate for something that will work for you. And for us, we really needed that UNO. We needed the extra buffer of those couple of weeks. It could have been months. I believe we're moving into the new place ahead of the originally discussed move out date. So it works. You just gotta be patient. Only one person panic at a time. And don't be afraid to pull the levers. Don't be afraid to go back to the people that are making an offer saying, ooh, how about this date? And really negotiate. Take advantage of the time.
Anything you would change now having gone through it with the whole buy-sell scenario?
No, I wouldn't really change anything. And as I said, you know, I think, you know, just making sure you have enough time to be patient is always helpful, especially like us, we're hoping to find a place that we can stay in for a while. And so, you know, trying to sort of balance compromising on what, you know, and, but no, I think at the end of the day, it worked out, you know, beautifully. So I wouldn't really change it at all.
What were your freakouts like?
I definitely, you know, wrestled with, as I just kind of highlighted, like, I knew exactly what I wanted, you know, and I knew what I thought was a fair price, you know, for some of these places.
Yeah.
And it was very frustrating to see some of these places go so high, you know, over asking.
Yeah.
And, you know, at a certain point, you're like, are we going to be competitive, you know, for what we want or not? It's a case-by-case basis, though, you know, and, you know, I definitely think the place we ended up buying could have gone higher, for sure.
Yeah, in a bidding war and open market.
Yeah.
So, you know, it's all about strategy at the end of the day. But you know, as I said that time in Jamaica Plain where I was confident, you know, we went above asking. I thought we put a really strong offer together, and it just wasn't good enough, you know. And after a few times of that, it of course gets frustrating. But you know, for us, I think the biggest anxiety was just, you know, wanting a place we can be in for, you know, medium term at least. And for us, that meant trying not to compromise on things like, you know, second bathroom or additional space in the basement or, you know, whatever.
And while you never told me your anxieties, I kind of like felt it. And
Oh yeah, I think everybody could
No,
feel it.
No, you guys were really like good about. Like, I feel like every week we saw something that you guys would enjoy.
Yep.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah,
And like
yeah.
that's a good, and we have the UNO for 2 months. The deal is under contract for like 5 weeks. That's like 9 weeks of tries.
Yeah.
So like in my head, I'm like running the numbers. I'm like, we're in a good spot. I definitely felt it between
Yeah.
like reading between the texts and like.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Definitely.
mean,
we both work full time. We
Yeah.
have a dog. We, you know, are busy people. We have stressful lives, and you need that home base. And
Yeah.
the very thought of living out of a suitcase, renting for a couple of months, like going back to the lifestyle we had just left, just felt so daunting.
I think that I remember calling you. I can't remember exactly when in the process, but it definitely was after a couple of swings and misses.
Yeah.
And I had talked to you and just been like, what do you think? Like, should I start to worry yet? You know,
Do we
basically.
need to start lowering our expectations here?
Because you're right, you know, I mean, the cycle was basically, we're looking every day, usually all day, just seeing what's new every single day. We would pick out 5 or 10 properties that seemed to, interesting, pick the one that we want to go for that week and, cross your fingers. And, we started to see these places go so far over asking that that's when I was like, okay, we only have a limited number of tries at this, or to your point, we're going to be renting again. So does that mean we need to scale back our target price so we have more wiggle room above asking or something like that? And, you said, no, I don't think so. We just need to be patient, and we're just getting to the start of the spring market, which we were. We saw a lot more come through even that week, I think. As soon as we had that call, I think the next day, all these listings popped up. I was like, okay, there's options.
It's crazy because in your mind you see it as like a linear timeline of like from here to here, we're good if we get something accepted. From here to here, oh, it's gonna be tight. I don't know. We're worried. And then from like here, it's like, oh God, okay, you gotta get a pod. You gotta prepare to be somewhere for a month or something. But the reality is, this is all green, and then you have like this teeny tiny little 2-week period all the way at the end. Wrapping your head around that of like, okay, I know the deadline is in 2 weeks, but it's still not time to freak out yet. Like the time to freak out feels like it's getting closer and closer, but in reality, it really was not that close.
And no, that's exactly like how you want to look at it, right? So on a linear scale, if your house is under contract and that's the day you start your buying process, you're like way behind.
Yeah.
So like with you guys, we shifted your buy side to the point where when your house is under contract, you're already putting offers in.
Yeah.
You had already exhausted all the like, what if this? What about that? Maybe this, maybe that. You guys were already ready to go. So I'm like very confident that like if we get 9 tries at this, we're good. So I think that's what a lot of people in the same situation need to understand, that like you're doing like 2 trains are leaving the station at the same time, and like they have to just be like right behind each other.
Yeah.
And trust the process, and here we are.
Yeah.
Yep.
It certainly felt like one of those dueling roller coaster rides of like, oh God, it's so far ahead. There's no way we're ever going to catch up. And then, one move and boom, you're just in sync and you're right there again. And yeah, you can do it. It's not the easiest thing we've ever done, probably because we like worked ourselves up into a tizzy worrying about it. But, trust the process, trust the agent. There's a reason why you're telling us to do things at the timeline at which we are doing them. And so just do it. Persevere, work through it, invest in some rosé, and you'll be fine. You'll be fine.
Perfect. No, that's exactly what I wanted to hear. Thank you guys for trusting me and, just following the process, and here we are.
Here we are. And thank you.
Yep.
We got the house. It worked out.
Here we are.
Oh my gosh.
All right, congratulations, guys.
Thank you. Thank you so
Thank you.
much.